Okay, well, here goes nothing. I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about. And in a way, I feel like this should just be like a trial run for, you know, uh, maybe just to find my quote unquote YouTube voice. Um, I'm not sure exactly what I'm being led to do, but I feel like I should do it in this format, even if it's just like a video diary entry, spiritual entry, or spiritual diary. Um, I'm kind of getting to the point where I don't know I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say. I still know he's teaching me something, but what exactly I don't know yet. I know that as far as like physicality goes, I've been working a lot of overtime, and I pretty much this week I've decided I'm not doing it this week because I need to rest and I need some time to do things like this. Of course, spend time with him and read his word and pray. It's almost like time it's starting to become very crucial. And by that I mean some people like let me scratch that, but basically time is becoming of the essence. And it's time for me to start speaking out and trying to get as many people out there that will listen to listen and try and meet their Savior while there's still time to do it in relative peace and safety and quiet, because it's really hard to learn if it's chaotic around you. Hey, kitty. All I know is that for me, in many ways, 2020 was a wake-up call, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. It was a bad year all around. And everything that happened in that year, like I left my job that I'd been at for like 7, almost 8 years to go to another spot further away from home. And, you know, I worked the whole time I was deemed essential or whatever. But there were other things going on besides the lockdowns and COVID and all that. And, you know, I'm not going to get into any detail, but more or less it was, there was me and one of my neighbors had a property line dispute that got kind of ugly, but it's resolved since then, so no biggie, no harm, no foul, really. But I believe God used all the events of 2020 to bring me to the end of myself and save me. He used all of those events to make me fully submit. Well, maybe not fully submit, but because I wrestle with my flesh and my carnality every day. But God is still working on me, as he does with all of his children. The crucial thing is to get out of his way and let him have his way, because we've had it our way for so long, and look what we've done. And I know in my life I've screwed many things up. And I might have to go into some detail on that at some point in the future. I'm looking off in the distance. There's deer across the field. It's like 40-acre field, and they're just sitting there at the edge of the woods, just, I don't know, they're just standing there. I can't really see them, but I know they're over there. I can see them moving. Either way, I was saved December 18th, 2020. And it's, I don't want to get ahead of myself or go down a rabbit hole, but more or less since I've become saved, I've learned, and I've heard a lot of conversion stories, you know, especially when I was first really diving into his word and really getting to know him through his word for really the very first time in my life that I was ever truly hungry for it. So I would watch some YouTube as well, and there are so many conversion stories out there where it didn't happen at an altar call or an invitation at church, or a priest didn't come or pastor didn't come to the house and, do you know Jesus Christ? Would you like to get to know him? Would you like to be saved? Most true conversions, well, from what I can tell, they're true conversions. No other person is involved. It's that person and God alone, no one else. My dad was one of them. My dad got saved in the parking lot of a church. My pastor now was saved in the woods. Another guy I listened to for a while, he's pretty famous. If you're a Christian and you've watched YouTube for any length of time, you'd probably recognize his name, but I'm not going to say it. But his conversion was a surprise even to him. And mine came through a dream, and the dream basically broke me enough psychologically to where I was crying when I woke up. I was crying when I was hanging around the house. I was on second shift at the time, so I woke up and had plenty of time to hang out and, basically collect myself. But more or less, I was in the shower when I told the Lord that my life was his. And in that moment, I wouldn't have been able to tell you at that moment, but looking back, like that day and the following days and the week after that, I knew that that was the moment something in me changed that was not of my doing and not of my power. And yes, ever since then, it has been, in many times, a 2 steps forward, 1 step back type journey. And but that's okay. That's to be expected. There's nothing wrong with that. It's wanting to press forward with our Savior is the important part, and listening to him when he nudges us in our conscience and says, that's not how you're supposed to be. Or, you're not supposed to talk like that. Moments like that. That's how you hold his hand and let him lead you, is by listening to those nudges in your conscience. So I feel like there still is some time to find more of my brothers and sisters before things get too chaotic. I'm not sure if this is the right avenue for me to do it, or if I should do it more face to face. I just know I need to start speaking more, I think. I don't see, sometimes it's like I'm not even sure what I'm supposed to do. It's just maybe in this case doing, maybe doing an actual video entry will be helpful. And if hopefully for somebody other than myself, because sometimes these are good for me. It takes a while to actually write, which is good too, but the older I get, the more I realize how time slips by so fast, and there's things that I would like to express that writing would just take too long, unfortunately. So trying to think of something else to say. I kind of did, I didn't post it on YouTube, but I pretty much did kind of like it was like a prototype or a possible video for YouTube, but I just haven't published it. And it's kind of talking about preppers and what's coming next for us here in the United States. And to be quite honest, hey kitty, you gonna come up here or what? Come on. That's this is Chirp. Okay, so another video I did that isn't published, so I'll ask it here. Have you ever been in a relationship where the partner that you were with, instead of wanting to grow and move forward in your relationship with each other, this person constantly wanted to look back at the moment that y'all met, or the moments where y'all realized you were falling for each other, or, you know, pretty much remember how we met and how we fell in love. And they're always wanting to talk about it. And the guy I was with, that I've been through this once, and let me tell you, it is not as romantic as it sounds. Because if you're, most people, and maybe I'm not most people, but for people that, were fairly well grounded and want a lasting relationship, there comes a point where everybody has to admit, like, hey, that puppy love stage can only go so far, and it's time to dig a little deeper with each other and actually grow as human beings together. That's really the only way a relationship can survive, is to grow together. So, needless to say that my relationship with that guy didn't last but 6 months, and it shouldn't have lasted that long because there were so many red flags, and I chose to ignore them because at that time I was coping with really a lot of loneliness, and that was before my relationship with God got deeper than it is now. And so pretty much the reason I'm talking about that is because if, let's say you're a Christian, and you're a Christian whose relationship with Christ is only as deep as the cross. And this isn't, don't get me wrong, this is not to diminish his finished work on the cross at all. It is the pivotal moment in history. It is the only way that we even got to meet him in the first place. Him and God the Father, okay? But if that's your only moment that you can point to and say, remember when we met, then I believe you have some work to do, some serious prayer and introspection, because that's on your part, not his part, but on your part, that is a very superficial relationship. And you could be one of the few, or actually one of the many, where Christ says in that day, depart from me, I never knew you. So just a word of caution there. And this isn't to judge anybody. This is to call your attention to warn you that to really examine yourself to see if you're in the faith. Paul said that. I wish I had my Bible with me, but I don't. But it's somewhere in one of the Pauline letters or epistles. Oh, what's going on out there? Dog's barking a couple yards over. So that's I mean, I grew up in church, and I knew all the lingo for forever. Because when me and my sister were born, I have a twin sister, pretty much as soon as we were released from the hospital, we were raised in church. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday nights, weekly, for years, like 16, 17 years, until I got old enough to get a job and they started scheduling me on Sundays or Wednesdays or whatever. Looking back, I regret that deeply, and I wish my parents had put their foot down, but you know, being stubborn, rebellious teenagers that wanted to make some money and have their own car, you know, they had to basically put me back in God's hands. So where was I going with that? I hate it when I do that. God, I hate this. I hate it when I do this crap. Just giving a little bit of my testimony, I guess. Oh yeah, okay. So basically, I knew all the lingo, and I made a profession of faith when I was 10 years old, but I can't say that it was truly genuine because it was made out of fear. Like the church showed this really horrifying movie of people being tortured in hell, and as a 10-year-old girl that wasn't ever allowed to watch horror movies, thank God, thank you Mom and Dad, then of course, you know, a 10-year-old girl that had never seen that kind of violence, real or otherwise, of course it scared me. So I went to the altar. Me and my sister both did. And maybe that was enough to at least, I don't know, I hate to put it this way, but I don't know any other way to put it, but what if it was enough to put me on God's radar, I guess? I don't know, because it seems like ever since, like, in my life after that point up until very recently when I was, you know, in 2020, it's like I was running from him when I should have been taking his hand and learning him, because I can only imagine the service that I would have been doing for him if I had just submitted back then the way I'm trying to do now and truly live for him. But, you know, he works all together for good for those that love him. And I know now that I do love him and he loves me. So, you know, I just kind of get to that point where I don't want to keep coming to the end of myself over and over and over again. I want to lay it all of my life at his feet and say, here it is, you know, as uncomfortable as it's going to be sometimes, and as painful as it's going to be sometimes, this life is yours. This body will turn back to dust. My spirit will go back to you, and my soul will go to heaven or hell, or heaven. Jeez, I hate that I hate that I said that, but okay, more or less for anybody who's not saved, or forget about it. I'm stumbling all over myself. My apologies. But submitting and trying to get the carnal nature under control on our own power is basically impossible. The only way we can do it is under his blood and under his power and his strength and his grace. There is no other way to do it. Trust me, I've tried. Check out my video on a crack in the stronghold of gluttony, and that is still being worked on. But I'm not going to make that too public because I'm hoping and praying that I'm not sure what to say about that, other than that might be my thorn in my side. That might be, excuse me, the part of my carnality that is there to keep me humble. Because even, you know, Paul had a thorn in his side, where basically it was the one thing that kept him from turning boastful or gloating in what he had with God. You know, so it might be that with me. It might be one of those things where I'm constantly having to try again, and keep trying, you know, trying to get it defeated and lay it at his feet. But as long as I'm in this body, it probably won't happen. But that's for him to tell me. But it is an inkling, and yeah, more basically more tests are needed. So as far as that video I put out about a month ago, I guess, on everyone's a Christian until it gets biblical, me wanting to do my little hobbies from the past, yeah, the urge hits, and then it's like it fizzles out just as quick as it comes up. And I know I put a video, I think it's the video I put out back in April. What's the name of it? It's time to prepare for what's next. At the end of that video, basically, I'm still, you know, I've stopped praying for it because I know he's heard me. He will honor it when the time is there, or when the time is right, where I ask for strength and courage to, well, obey him in all things. I'll probably always have to pray for that. But to leave everything behind that he's given me, if he asked me to do that, I believe that this, my lack of enthusiasm for my former hobbies is part of that. Because pretty much really the only reason I go out in the yard anymore is, number one, I've been doing a lot of overtime, but outside of that, it's just to have some food. You know, like, I've got the fall garden started, and I go out there and collect eggs, but as far as, you know, planning my next steps for what do I want to do on the property next, I just don't do it no more. It just doesn't appeal to me the way it used to. It's like, and I hope that what's really going on in my soul and my spirit is seeking his kingdom first, the way he tells us to. Seek ye first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added unto you, which, if you read the preceding verses, is not talking about everything you want or could ever see or want to buy. It is talking about your very basic needs, your food and your clothes. That's it. I've seen some verse where it says, basically, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and the Lord will give you the desires of your heart. No, it does not say that. Look up Jeremiah 17:9, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? The Lord is not going to give you the desires of your deceitful heart. It's not what's best for you. You don't know what's best for you. We think we do, but we don't. Ask me how I know, because I have had many times where my heart led me astray, and yours has too. And if you say yours hasn't, then you've either had a very, very good life, or you are just delusional, you know, because we all basically share the same deceitful, wicked heart, whether we want to admit it or not. People are more or less the same. Ever since Adam and Eve fell in the garden, we have this rebellious nature that insists on doing it its own way. And it just seems like it leads us into an even deeper and blacker hole than where we first were. But God has given us a way out of this rebellion and back into His loving arms. And I guess I'll talk about this real quick too. Like a lot of the tracts that you see some of these churches handing out, it's a free gift of salvation. Accepting it is free, but to actually live it out, it is not. You will lose friends. You will lose your old lifestyle. You may be fired from your job. And then people find out you're a Christian, and then the persecutions could start. And I'm going to have to do a video on this too, where Jesus is telling His disciples that, Lord, I can't remember exactly, I think it was the rich young ruler came to Him wanting to follow Him, and He said, go sell everything you have, give it to the poor, and come follow me. And He went away sorrowing because He had many possessions and wealth. And the disciples looked at, and He said, you know, easier to put for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. And the disciples said, well, this is a hard saying, because who then can be saved? And Jesus says, nothing is impossible with God. And then the disciples basically come back and say, well, Lord, we've left everything. We've left family and homes and land and possessions and have followed you. And He said, you know, yeah, verily, truly you have. And anyone who leaves father or mother, sister, lands, homes in this life will also have the same in this life with persecutions. So I'm still kind of delving into the meaning of all of that. Like pretty much, yeah, you lose it, but you also get it back, but you also have to pay for it with persecutions at the same time. So I'll have to ask Him and pray about that, because I ask Him basically about everything. I try and ask Him and pray about everything before I ever talk to any other human being about it. And that is a discipline in and of itself, because it used to be where if something happened at work that ticked me off, or you know, something upset, you know, I got some crazy bill in the mail, you know, just name a thing, you know, all the little challenges we all face as human beings, where I would get on the phone with whoever and start fussing about it. And it wasn't about, maybe, I think, maybe a couple months, 3, 4, 5 months maybe after I got saved, where I realized that I was starting to go to Him with stuff that was concerning to me instead of other people. So, oh yeah, and I meant to talk about this too earlier, my bad. Where one of the first things I started asking him about was, uh, like, Lord, you say you don't change. You're the same as you have always been, past, present, and future, and you don't lie. So if you talk to the prophets and the people who loved you and followed you, you must still talk to us, right? So I basically was thinking it out with him, and I'm not even sure. I didn't pray back then the way I pray now. And I'm not going to go into that at this time, but I will. But I was like, Lord, even little babies and children have to know which voice is their parents' voice before they learn to obey that voice, right? Yeah, it's true. And no, it's not an audible voice, but it is something he knows you can hear, and you ignore it at your peril. And I might have to do a video on that, the first time I quote unquote heard his voice. I think I will. Anyway, so I'm gonna break and think about this for a minute, and good chance I record another one. So I'm gonna hang this up for now. So see y'all. God bless.